Have you ever crossed piranha-infested waters before? We have. Who are we? Two friends journeying on an adventure through Guyana, South America, the land of many waters. This expedition takes place off of Esquipo coast. So we set out at 4 a.m. to get a head start. We started off with some crackers and butter, a little bit of bread, and some coffee. We had to take a dirt road that passed through some sand pits, and the sand pits were pretty huge. It's best to avoid the sun's extreme temperatures, so we mounted up everything in the truck before the sun broke out. Chip and I had wanted to go on a trip like this for the past. We've always wanted to do this trip, and this is something I felt would be a good experience for both of us. We have no idea where we're going, except we're going into the bush.
It was recommended for us to have the bug spray, long boots, and long sleeve shirts.
The bush is a place that is in the jungle. That's why they call it the bush. There's bushes. And pretty much it's off the grid from normal civilization. It's not a very common place for public activity. There are wild animals, many diseases, hunters. You're pretty much walking into a danger zone. So we take this dirt road to get back there, and first thing I notice is there's not too much common folk around. There aren't any houses or anything. So this looks like we're going somewhere that's like pretty off the grid. It's like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So it gets darker, a little more gloomy as we're driving through, and there's all sorts of branches and things hitting the vehicle. And then all of a sudden, Romain points forward and he says, look up, check up ahead. This is it. So here we are, we're approaching the waterway where our boat's supposed to meet us. And I see a little canoe down there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, our boat guy's supposed to be meeting us, so that can't be our boat. That thing, how is that gonna hold all these hundreds of pounds of gear as well as 6 people?
Hey, that's the boat I'm playing. We are screwed.
Little do we know, that boat is just like the one that we're gonna be riding on. Hammock?
It didn't really make a difference because it was still looked like a little canoe.
Man, we really moving this stuff.
So Godfrey and the rest of the crew are grabbing the gear at this point, and they're gonna mount it up. So then Chris hands us our lawn boots, and we're thinking, oh, maybe we have to put them on.
I'm like, well, we're getting ready to get into the boat. We're gonna be in a big body of water. We're gonna be walking on a lot of water and mud and stuff. So I put them on. Then Godfrey told us to, and I quote, take them off.
So how are you gonna
And we took them off, but we was like, well, why would we take them off? We were like, look where we're at. They explained to us right after to where if the boat does tip over, we won't be able to swim.
We helped Godfrey out with this big black tarp thing and have no idea why is this thing even coming on our trip with us. So we hop in the boat, and off the bat, the thing starts rocking. And that's just with Chip, myself, and another crew member in there.
Oh yeah, they did.
So now everybody gets in the boat, and we're trying to find a steady point to balance on. And it just keeps rocking and rocking and rocking. I mean, me and Chip are looking like we're gonna be going out in these broad waters, which are very uncharted by authorities, locals. This is not a common place for travel or vacation. The nearest hospital is like 40 miles away from us. If anything happens, we're screwed.
So we move stuff back there.
All of our safety lies in the hands of our crew.
We asked one of the guys, are we good? Is everything set? Do we need to readjust? Do we need to put any gear in different spots? Move some stuff to the back, put some more stuff in the front? But he was like, we're good, man. So I'm like, okay, all right, cool. I look at Zay, and he looked at me and we was like, okay, man, this is the last go.
So I asked him one more time.
We in a good spot, right, Chris? You want us to move around? I didn't know if you want one of us back there, one front, whatever.
And the engine turned on.
So it's piranha water. We've got no life jackets. The nearest hospital is like 40 miles away from us. We either turn back now or we keep going.
Oh, for dear life. That's it now.
This is something we've always wanted to do, so we just hold on tight, buckle our seatbelts.
This is what we came here for. Let's do it, man. No turning back now.
That's why it's rock. Once we just kept going, they should be going straight.
We had no idea of the type of journey that it took to get to the bush. We thought it was just gonna be a simple, oh, we just drive here, get out, and bam, we're there. No, we went on one hell of a journey to get there. Hell no, them girls ain't doing this shit.
Whew, we made it. The boat is continuing on this waterway with no issues.
The way the air pocket system set up with water is like this is it's always gonna be a flow. Yeah. If it start like pouring rain and all then we gotta start scooping. But this is good.
What?
Yeah. Basically.
Looking at Godfrey on the front of the boat the way he is, I knew nothing was gonna happen. I felt totally safe. Godfrey's like a local legend. He knows how to get anywhere he needs to be over the waters. He knows how to tell what time of day it is and if it's gonna storm, all off the clouds and where the sun's at.
We're finally in this big body of water now. Our cell phones don't got no signal. Can't call nobody, no messages, no nothing. So this is the real deal. We are out here now. So to me, because I'm a gamer, look like some RPG stuff. So after a while, I started actually feeling a little more comfortable. And with Godfrey leading the boat, I was good. I was smooth. And then at last, we finally pulled up to the destination. And boy, when I say we was relieved to finally get here, we was relieved.
So as we approach the island, I see all sorts of bird and flock, chickens running around, and I even see a couple dogs. And the funny thing is, they were in harmony. They were all coexisting. So we're all gasping, taking our breaths as we're pulling up to the coast. And I remember taking my first foot out and setting it right there in the water, right into the sand. I mean, all 6 of us just crossed piranha water with no life jackets. Who knows what lies ahead? While we were sitting there gawking, the crew begins unloading the boat, so we decided to go ahead and give them a hand.
We started getting all the gear off the boat. There's a black tarp that we still didn't know what it was for at the time. Took that off. Godfrey was telling us to come with him. We were basically going to go meet the captain of the island.
Godfrey starts leading us up to go meet the chief. But right as we're going up, it starts pouring raining, so we just go underneath his cabin. So we walk around and take a look, and we realize it's the home of the duck and the dog that we saw approaching the island. We're treading on their land, we're trespassing. So I have to use the bathroom.
So you just pick a corner and pee?
They tell me I can go ahead and pick a corner and just go.
Pick a good corner, and like I said, where the leaves at?
Woo!
Oh, oh God.
It was quite exhilarating, wondering if a jaguar was gonna jump out or you were gonna get speared by a hunter.
Or we can go to the outhouse. When you use it, you actually feel like you done fought off some monsters or something. Like you actually feel like, man, we just used the outhouse. And that was terrible, man. It was like a seat that they dug a hole, a really deep hole. And it's like just nothing, it's just like a long hole. Like whatever you drop in it, you hear it about like literally a good actual 3 seconds later. Like, I don't think you want to use the outhouse.
Oh yeah, we come back in one piece. They're gonna be like,
I remember stepping on a little prickly pine or something, and it bore right through my foot.
Oh, motherfucker. Yeah, that should be good. Okay. Yeah, watch out. It's like prickly things.
From what I understand, the people who are on these lands, they form a sort of a heavier callus underneath their feet, and they can take the walking across such. So I limp back, and we finally head upstairs, where we meet the captain. In the meanwhile, Godfrey prepares some watermelon and fruit. He even made some plantain for us.
The plantain is like, it's like a banana, but it's not sweet, but it's a lot thicker, and it has a thicker texture too.
Perfect for frying though. They turn out like French fries. That is the Guyanese version of a French fry, pretty much. So Godfrey starts cutting this thing up, and I don't know what it is. I find out later it's a owaru, and this little orange thing is good for oils. You can actually put it on your skin and your face, when the sun's beaming down or whatnot, and I actually did that. We go out back with Chris, our guide, and he's feeding fish, and we're just taking a moment to ourselves, reflecting on the fact that we just crossed piranha water and made it out alive, and we did so without life jackets. I don't know what we were thinking.
And I'm just like reflecting on, man, I mean, this is still the beginning, but I'm like, we really crossed these waters right now. Like, we're here, we're on this island, and I even crossed with an open wound. Like earlier, I hit my bed that previous night. It was pretty bad when it first happened, but it was bleeding, and if the boat had tipped over, my ass would have been grass, for real, for real. It didn't register to me until after we got to the destination, like, oh shit, like, I forgot I had that.
If we would have went capside, them piranhas would have swarmed to us. Let alone we made it across in this old, World War II battleship lifeboat. I'm very surprised and just amazed myself that this thing can make it across these waters. So we're making ourselves at home and just getting a feel for the island. And then Romaine calls us up and says, hey, I'm gonna make a juice for you guys. And we see him putting his hand in a bucket and smushing the peels of a pineapple.
It looked kind of good, but the whole time I'm looking like, oh man, we using raw hand to do that? There's no other way to do that. But it actually turned out really tasty when you get past with him, using the hands. Like, ooh, we don't do that at home.
Nevertheless, it turned out to be quite a beverage. They use old cast iron skillets, which probably weren't bought at least in the past 30 to 50 years.
I would go as far as to say they're old school, but they use it to fry the plantain and other items or whatever in there. So we were eating that pretty much throughout the day, so it wasn't really heavy.
Items throughout the day is fair. You know what I'm saying? Like I did like an hour and a half later, eat watermelon, somebody a couple of hours, 2-3 hours later. It's not like just big dinner plate meals. It's
not so.
I get it now. They don't.
Less processing going on.
Romaine takes us out for our first walk in the bush.
We're basically keeping an eye out for any type of wildlife we can come across, any animals or bugs or anything like that.
We are on dangerous grounds. From what I understand, there are jaguar, tarantula, all sorts of weird creature and even plant species that can harm us. Romaine and Chris have cutlasses, and they're going to use these cutlasses to cut our way through where we're going.
I would hope we would not run into nothing that was, legit to where we actually have to use them for self-defense. I wouldn't per se want to see that.
So Romaine hands Chip the cutlass, and Chip eventually realizes he's probably better off giving it back to Romaine. We're climbing through, and there's tree everywhere. And I'm wondering if there's spiders in the trees and bugs, so I'm extra cautious about what I'm doing.
Romaine told us to be quiet, but we didn't know why. I think he saw something, but we was trying to see where it was at.
So we see Romaine pointing off in the distance, and he's like, "Shh, come up close. Shh, keep it down." And we get closer to whatever he's looking at, and then I say, "Why are we getting closer to this thing if we don't even know what it is?" We're stuck wondering if a jaguar is going to jump out or something.
Yeah, it was okay.
So now Romaine's pointing up in the trees. I was ready to capture it, so I pulled my camera out. And I'm keeping my distance, following around Chris while he's, trying to get a better angle at it. My guess here is they're going to rattle the tree or to get whatever it is to come down or show itself.
He tells us to look up. He says, Blackie, Blackie.
What's that? Blackie, like in the tree.
But it was something up in the tree. I would imagine maybe a monkey.
I'm like, okay. Is this really the tree? It's right here. We probably need to take a few steps back.
What was that? No.
I'm scared shitless right now. I don't know what's up there. I don't know what he's pointing at.
You see?
I'm just thinking we probably should move to our next port of destination.
We was hearing some noises and stuff, but couldn't really pinpoint what it was. But it was like, okay, well, let's just keep the camera out and see what we can get.
Whatever it was, it left pretty quickly. Like we didn't even see it when it left, but it was there, whatever it was. So we start pressing through, and he tells us to watch out for this certain plant, this leaf. If it comes in contact with our skin, we can have a problem.
Careful with these. Avoid them. Yeah, don't let them touch on your skin.
Considering how far we went, it started feeling like we could get lost. Now we knew they knew where they were going, but for us it was like, man, if we actually had to, we did not know how to get back because everything blended in so well. It was just like everything looked the same. So we thinking we heading back to the main campsite, and we going further in this bitch.
So we're walking, and then they stop us dead in our tracks and say, "Look." And I'm like, "What?" I'm looking for it with the camera, and then, yea and behold, there it was. A spider. This guy has web that turns yellow whenever it's touched. I imagine it's like a defense mechanism, in case predators come, they'll warn off, knowing, oh, this spider is somewhere around here.
This is exactly why we needed the long boots, for shit like that. So you do not want to walk through this type of area and you don't have the long boots on to protect you. Right now, at that point, the long sleeve shirts was not as important. They were important, but not for where you were walking, not for the leg. To me, the legs were more important.
So I get as many shots as I can. We're kind of just scouring and looking for bugs and things. But we didn't catch too much out there, and we decided it was probably best to go back right now.
The little walk that we had through the jungle, we didn't really get to find anything, but just the experience of going through in general, it was pretty exciting, We still had a lot more to see soon.
And now we got to get ourselves some bait. Fish bait. These are the fish that swim in these waters. These apparently are the bait that we need.
What we needed to do, we needed to get some bait. And those little fish, that's the bait we're going to catch.
So the basic idea is two people grab each pole and they stretch out this net, which has little weights attached to the bottom of it. The weights are there to bring the net down so it can capture anything that the net encompasses. So we're going to catch some bait with this thing, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, clear though. So you're going around in a circle?
Me and Zay were going to try our first little whack at it and see if we can catch some, but we did it like about 5 times, and we failed terribly.
So Romaine tells me to get out the way, and him and Chip give it a couple whacks. We all do, but it wasn't enough. Every time we came at the water, there were no fish. We caught no bait.
Yeah, you come around.
So then Chip and Romaine and we sit out and we're like, okay, we gotta let the fish come back. The water has to settle. So after the water settles, Chip and Romaine grab the net and they give it their best shot. I mean, I see them just trotting through using all this manpower
And behold, we actually caught some fish. I was pretty excited. But the thing is, they were pretty small. And for a brief moment, because of how long it took, I'm thinking like, man, we about to put these in the skillet. We about to eat. But no, they told us they weren't even good enough for bait, honestly. So we had to feed them to the ducks.
The fish apparently were so small in quantity that we can't even use them for catching more fish. So we gotta go to bed hungry.
After a long day, we decided to get a nap in.
We took a break and they set up some hammocks, and we just kind of sat back and took a little rest. In the meanwhile, the crew starts grabbing some 2x4s and putting together, I don't know, some kind of little structure. And it's at that point I realized they're getting our shelter together for the evening.
But when they started working on it, it was already kind of like getting dark. So we didn't probably have that much time to work with, but we was trying to make it as fast as possible.
So the guys pull out that big black tarp we saw earlier and they began to put it over the structure they set up.
That was basically our roof, over our head. That was the roof. So, ooh, thank God we kept that.
So it gets darker and darker, and finally night falls upon us. The chief is bedding down for the night, and we still don't have our shelter up. Godfrey makes a fire for us in the meantime, and he begins wanding it, and the fire just shoots right up. I mean, he literally just wanded oxygen onto it, and the thing lit up.
He just started fanning it, and it just like, it's pretty cool to see and see it in person too, at that.
Meanwhile, the crew is still hacking at the shelter.
We'll bring this side from middle now. We'll bring this come this side.
I see they've got some 2x4s put up, and they've got this tarp-like setup going on, but that's only one method to the madness. We have to see if this thing's going to hold up our weight. So we start to take down our hammocks from the trees, and me and Chip were going to get our hammock, the hammock he slept on earlier, and then
right dab smack where my hand was at was a big ass tarantula. Zay was like, "Don't you move. Give me your arm and just let me do what I'm doing." I said, "Okay." I said, "What's up?" And he said, he pointed, and I look, and I'm like, "Oh, shit." I'm like, well. So at that point, we just let the guys take the rest of that shit down. I'm like, you know what? Let's let the experienced people do this.
That was on the tree that Chip was laying up under earlier. Like, he was this close to danger and didn't even know it. Thank God it never came down. So we hand our hammocks over, and they started to tighten them up. These guys are just experts. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing. So I see them getting down the final adjustments as they tighten things down. And Godfrey seems pretty calm about it. It doesn't look like he's bothered at all that this thing might not work. So Chip steps up to take his first leap of faith into the hammock. So they say, inch by inch, we want you to get on the hammock.
The main test was to see how sturdy it was. And I'm a pretty big dude. Not to mention I was the biggest guy there. So I wound up sitting down first. Godfrey had me sit down. He was like, "Sit."
And he's going down, and we hear it creaking, but nothing happened. It worked. It was actually able to hold his weight.
Okay, first test was good.
So he's sitting down now, and they say, okay, well, we need you to do some bouncing to test the durability of it.
Give it a little shake.
And it works. So now we've got one more test. Now we've got to see how it is for him to lay down on it as well as everybody else in their hammock. So everybody gets in their hammocks, and Chip lays down, and the structure is holding up.
And success. We had a place to sleep, because if that didn't work and we had to hook them hammocks back up to the tree, I ain't gonna lie, I was gonna have to sleep with the captain.
And we actually have the shelter up, and we'll all be able to go to sleep tonight. Coffee's made, and we get some crackers with some butter to kind of relax ourselves for the evening. Because we didn't catch any bait, this is going to be our dinner for the night.
And at that point, we called it a night.
Godfrey gathers us some water for our coffee. Here in Guyana, it's very important that we wake up before the sun rises for just about every activity.
I have to admit, like, I really like how morning time looks at this hour. Even though, you know, we don't hear nothing but roosters and all the other stuff just making noise. I think that happens like around 4 or 5 o'clock. But you actually get used to it. Everybody's brushing their teeth and stuff. I'm still in the hammock like, food. Everybody's stomachs are still growling because this coffee and crackers just ain't cutting it. It's only cutting it for so long.
As we're drinking our coffee, it just starts raining out of the blue. So from what I understand, our fisherman was going to go out and get us some fish. But because of the rain, the water may be a little unsettling and he may not be able to fish right now. At first, I didn't think the rain was going to be an issue due to the structure we set up. I'm like, okay, we're good. This thing's working. But then I start to notice there's like these little leaks and we realize this is going to be an issue. So while this is happening, we're sitting back looking like sitting ducks and the crew begins to start to handle the issue. Water pockets can form on the tarp, so it's very important that we work together to push the water down off the tarp back on the ground. It was like we were a colony of ants and everybody was just working together for the common goal of keeping this tarp up and making sure we have shelter. So me and Chip took a nap and I was woken up to hear about the fishermen coming back. So I go down to the water bay and I see Godfrey raking the waterbed. After all, this is where we bathe, brush our teeth, and wash our dishes. So we want to make sure the water is relatively clean. So I look in the distance and I see the fishermen coming back. So apparently the fisherman went out to get us breakfast. I'm hoping he got some pretty good catch.
Hopefully.
So the boat pulls up to the coast and me and Romaine rush over. And I'm looking inside and I see all these fish. And to us, they're known as piranha. The locals actually call them wobbly. So I rush back to get Chip. I'm like, man, there's piranha. Let me go get Chip. Show him the piranha. You want to see the piranha? They caught some fish. It's like 7:36. He left earlier and went fishing. Just don't put your hand out and bite it off.
And what do we see? Finally, our first real meal.
That's the piranha. But they call them, what they call them instead of piranha?
Those fish?
Yeah.
Wabri.
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 Wabri. Hey, check this one out over here. The long one. See the mouth?
Huri.
Huri.
Yep.
And then meanwhile, Godfrey pulls out this bucket, and we notice he's pulling out bark from the bucket. And I hear the bark is from a tree called capadilla, and he's making a drink called capadilla that he's brewing from the bark.
Make it dig it hard. Yeah.
Would you imagine that? Something with natural Viagra properties out here in the bush. That is so insane.
Get the Viagra.
He's explaining us the properties of the drink, and he says, makes your d get hard. And I'm like, oh.
Good.
Right away, our fisherman starts to untangle the fish, and everybody starts setting up around him as he's preparing for the scaling. And then they give everybody a knife, and they start cutting and scaling. One of the first things we noticed they did was they cut off the bottom jaw of the fish. This is to prevent the fish from biting you if he's still alive.
Oh man, a bunch of them little teeth.
So they eventually throw us a knife, and I'm just taking pointers from everybody about how we're supposed to be cutting these fish up.
What the hell is that, huh? That's his for production, reproduction, like
6 eggs.
So I sit around and start pitching in. I grab a knife, I start scaling and cutting and gutting the fish out.
He actually started pulling the guts out. I actually thought he was, I thought the world was going to end when he did that.
It was a very messy experience, but I was very humbled by it because I didn't know it took this much to prepare fish. Usually we go to the market and it's already cut up and filleted for us.
And now it's time to actually prepare the fish to be put on the grill.
After we scale and gut the fish, we hand them over to Chris. Chris at this point is going to cleanse the fish and add seasoning. Chris is seen marinating the fish with water, lime, thyme, and a little bit of salt.
It was just so good to know that after everything we done been through, that we actually get to sit back and really just like enjoy something nice and warm for once, you know, at least on the meat side.
Romaine prepares the dishes in the meantime. After all, we have been drinking and eating here, so we do need to make sure we have fresh dishes. If you take a look at Godfrey and his son and pretty much everybody down here, they're pretty lean, and I think that's due to their diets, strictly being that off of fish, sometimes chicken, and definitely vegetables and fruits. Fruits, vegetables, fish, and chicken. That's pretty much all you need in the bush. They use a method of steaming the fish by pouring water onto the fish while they're wrapped in foil. And they put this sheet of metal over it where the fish continues to steam. Godfrey brings out this pan and he starts crushing up some breadcrumbs along with some cinnamon and puts it into this dish. So he starts stirring it up, and I remember looking at the cinnamon and saying, I have never seen real cinnamon sticks before. It looks just like how it does on any kind of packaging. So after Godfrey prepares the crackers and bread with the cinnamon, he goes down and gets the capadilla brew and he pours it into the mixture, and he says he's going to bake us a cake. Finally, dinner is served. We finally have our first real meal in the bush.
We actually had the fish, like, I believe, I want to say 3 different ways.
Baked, roasted, and steamed. Godfrey has showed Chip this technique on how to eat the food with his hand.
So the thumb is basically like the spoon, and the fingers is like the platform to hold it. So I'm like, oh, shit, that's kind of clutch.
And now, after we finished our meal, it's time to head into the interior. Today's a big day for us. We just had our feast, and now we're heading out further into the interior with Godfrey and the crew. We're told that there are water dogs to the first destination we're going. A water dog, from what I understand, it looks like a dog, but it swims underwater. Godfrey says that these water dogs can swim up to 30 minutes underwater while retaining their breath to catch prey and bring it back on shore where they eat it.
We wound up seeing our fisherman guy, and he was sitting on the end of the boat. And we're sitting here thinking, like, the hell is he doing? Like, is he trying to show off or some shit?
And then they tell us that this is a fishing technique to catch the fish and not scare them away.
It's a lot of things that they do that may seem or look weird, but it's for a really, really good reason.
The boat fills up with a little bit of water, but that's not stopping us. We've come too far. Everything is in Godfrey's hands now. He's the captain of this voyage. This is a very normal thing for him to travel out into the interior. I even heard one time Godfrey stayed in the interior for 1 year. As we cross the river, we notice that it eventually becomes a series of trenches.
There is no way to get through this on a normal boat. It was actually a necessity for Godfrey to use the stick that he had to, steer us left or right, especially when the turns got real tight, because the boat alone, the little latch on the boat that kind of like gave us wider turns, slower, wider turns, that wasn't enough for these tight, straight up left or right turns that were coming up. I was kind of scared to where if we lost that stick, we were gonna lose like 50% of our ability to move around.
And around these trenches, you notice these spiders, they were in their webs. And every trench we passed by had a spider in the web. This would be a good time to not run into a trench. So I see Godfrey looking up as if he sees something, and I notice there's a coast for us to barge.
We finally pulled up. We got out, started bringing out the gear, put on our shoes and everything, and we were told that we were supposed to see water dogs.
See, this is water dog.
Once we got out the boat, Romaine called me over, and he's pointing the cutlass down to a pile of fish scales.
Fish.
And the fish scales indicate that water dogs have been here.
Get toasted. The fish.
So I snap a few pictures, and I'm doing this a little anxiously because there might be water dog around us, and I'm not trying to have that encounter, at least this up close. I realized at the last second we did not put on any insect repellent, so I handed it over to Chip right away. The last thing we need is to catch malaria in the bush. So we head back over, and Godfrey pulls out some peanut butter and some crackers along with some watermelon. So we have a quick bite to refresh ourselves, and then we get back on the boat. So they refuel, and as we're backing out, we noticed we were going a little bit too fast, and we knocked right into a patch of land.
Here we go.
And this scared the shit out of me.
That actually me a little bit.
The boat stabilizes after Godfrey uses his stick to maneuver us. So we push on. Godfrey tells us there's another location we have to visit. It eventually becomes normal for us to pitch in and scoop the water out.
They weren't even doing it anymore. I guess it was so normal, you know, to them, they wasn't really thinking about it probably.
The team effort is very necessary. So now I'm noticing all these trees are halfway in the water, which indicates probably the water level has risen. This is probably the most uncharted part of territory we'll be on. Then we passed some trees, and I could hear the birds up in the trees, and they were just screeching and cawing, and I believe it was sort of like an alarm system for the jungle. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like these birds were alarming the jungle of us coming.
That's yours, huh?
So we get to the second destination, and I notice Chip goes out to pull the boat back onto the coast as far as he could. And he tells me, we not losing this boat.
If we lose this boat, we are finished. Like, there's nothing we can do. We're actually stuck here. So I took it upon myself. I went down there and I pulled the boat all the way up to the sand. I didn't give a damn if everyone had to use force to push it back into the water. I was gonna pull that shit all the way up as far as I felt that it was needed.
From what I understand, Godfrey is cultivating some kind of farm or something out here in the bush, and we're just gonna take a little peek at it. I don't know what's gonna pop out. I'm just glad that Godfrey's leading the way.
He wound up stopping and he turned around and we didn't know what was going on. He was like, no, turn around, we leave. And we looking like, well, what's up? What's going on?
So right away we turn back, and he's explaining to us that there were some storm clouds that he saw nearby that could be a problem.
And by the time we got to where the boat was, the clouds were really dark. A little bit, you could feel light drizzles of rain, and you could feel a little bit of wind picking up. So it was like, oh shit, the weather's getting bad. That's why we turned around.
So we hop in the boat and we push off the coast. Now we've got to get back, pass through a storm, and do it all before nightfall. because once it gets dark, Godfrey may not be able to show us the way back.
We get on the boat and we start making tracks. It's time to get the hell out of here for real.
It's very important for us to get back before nightfall because without the light, Godfrey won't be able to find our way home. We've got to totally trust everything Godfrey's saying. If we would have stayed back there, there's no telling what would have happened.
The whole time I'm like, man, please don't let this stuff pick up. Come on. And then it's getting dark too. It's damn near almost nightfall. And we're barely halfway there. But the way that the weather's looking, it's just not looking good no matter which way you look at it.
As the sky grew darker, we started to catch a little rain. There was like drops of rain hitting us, and that indicates, yeah, it's about to storm. We need to get some pep in our step. I noticed Pingo puts a rag over his head to prepare for the rain. So as it gets darker, we noticed raindrops start to come down. Just a little bit of drizzling, but it is a concern, because if it picks up, then we'll have to scoop all this water out, and we might not be able to do it fast enough.
Now the rain is picking up, and now it's starting to get a little serious.
Me and Chip are scared shitless. I mean, we could handle everything from getting onto the boats, going into the bush, and now we've got to get back out this thing with a storm brewing.
Thinking back of just how Godfrey just had us abruptly turn around, I just knew that this just wasn't a typical weather change. This is going to be something potentially pretty bad.
So I'm looking up in the sky, and I didn't see it before, but I noticed it now. Not only was there a storm cloud approaching, but there were two. So we've got to pierce between both of these and come out unscathed. This is going to be quite the task. Godfrey steers us through the first storm, and we avoid it. As we're going through, the worst thing happened that could happen. The engine turns off.
We're looking like, what the hell happened? Are we out of gas?
Apparently it overheated, and we had to sit and let it cool off.
So now at this point, I can't even lie. I actually started to crack.
So now I'm thinking, here we are, yet again, in piranha water, but now under storm clouds. This is the last thing we need.
So it's like, oh, there's a chance that this motor won't even start back up.
I'm sitting there having a moment of clarity, thinking, God, please don't let this be it. Don't let this be the end. We cannot be stranded out here.
Me and Zay looking at each other now like, well, man, it's between us and God now. Because all the worst things that could possibly happen just done happened.
Luckily, the boat engine turned back on, and we're back on our way.
Oh my God, was it such a relief of hearing that thing turn on.
You can sense the tenseness in our crew and notice that everybody's pretty anxious to get back. So we're all looking forward to getting back home tonight because we're not trying to set up shop in another uncharted part of the bush. So we're pushing forward, and I notice there's a large landmass ahead, and I'm praying that this is home. Luckily, the landmass we were approaching was home. It was our island. We're back. Godfrey did a damn good job. We could not have wished for a better crew nor a leader to get us through this.
Anybody else, hell, any other crew would have cracked, everyone would have been panicking, and shit would have gotten chaotic.
As we approach the island, we become more and more relieved, just knowing that we just dodged the storm from hell. And we made it back in one piece. I'm feeling like there's no challenge or obstacle that can stop us at this point. We've got a damn good crew.
We docked the boat, we got out, and after all the events that we've had today, it was definitely time for a good night's rest.
It's our final day. Today we pack up and go back home. We learned a lot of things from our crew, especially Godfrey. I learned how important teamwork was on this trip, how important it is to stick together and keep your cool. There are a lot of things that people take for granted, such as the ability to cook or travel, and let alone turn on a light switch. Here in the bush, those things you actually have to work for. You have to put forth some physical effort to go about surviving in your everyday scheme of life.
There's a saying that some people say to where they'll be like, walk a mile in my shoes. We walked a mile in their shoes. And we passed that shit with flying colors, if you ask me. Being here in real time just made me realize and understand that we have the luxury to hop in cars and, not even walk a few minutes from where we live at to get groceries, to get food, other little basic necessities. And here in the bush, you can't do that. You have to go and hunt. You have to know how to hunt. You have to have the mind state and the mentality to really make it out here. I'm not gonna lie. If you ask me, if you can make it here, you can actually make it anywhere.
Going back, we were pretty calm about it. We had already crossed through into the interior, surviving 2 storm clouds as well as the engine turning off. We actually crossed piranha water and survived to live to tell about it. Our journeys taught us a lot, and we're happy to take it back home. We had an amazing crew, amazing time, and now unfortunately we have to leave.
While I'm really relieved that we're finally heading back, I'm actually kind of sad too, because there was another part of me that was really enjoying this. Like really enjoying this, for real, for real. And, that's getting ready to be gone.
We approached the coastline where our truck was, and we were very happy to see that the truck was still there.
And let me tell you, I almost forgot that we even had a truck. One of the most unexpected things happened when we were getting ready to leave.
So as we're pulling up, I see one of the guys point up, and there it was. The one thing we came to see, we finally saw. The monkeys. I was very excited to see the monkeys because we've been talking about them the whole trip and hadn't seen them. And here they are.
That was like the main thing that we were heading into the bush to see was the monkeys. And we saw it right at the end of the trip. How much of a coincidence was that?
We had quite an adventure. Most people probably won't come back after experiencing something like this.
But for us, this is definitely not the last time.
We took a long dirt road that, damn, give me one of them beers. Have you ever, what the was that? Let me take it back one more time.
The boat stopped and we was like, what are we gonna do? Oh, you man.
But that wasn't going to help, because now we're traveling through something that looks like Jurassic Park. I mean, at any moment you're thinking a dinosaur is gonna jump out at you and just tip the vehicle over. It's gonna be crazy. So I said, hey, do you want one of us to move back? Do you want to do this? Don't worry about the big fire truck driving by. Who gives a shit? I'm gonna take it back.
I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, like I want to say 4 o'clock.